the opportunity to be listened to, and may we all be settled so that we are ready to start with our program. We will request that as our minister and the deputy minister enters the room, we all rise as a sign of respect. And when we do that, we'll remain standing, and we will then have the African Union Anthem. Thereafter, we will have the South African National Anthem. That would mean we're ready to start. May we all rise as the minister and the deputy minister enters. May we all remain standing and request that we then have our African Union Anthem, and then we will have successively the second one of the National Anthem. Thank you. I hope gentlemen will know.
Africa.
May we all take our seats. Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, Minister Nathi Mthethwa, our Honorable Deputy Minister, Madlamini, we're wondering how we say so true and we stop there. But Deputy Minister, we wanted to make sure you've got isithakazelo sakho kahle. Madlamini, umasithi siyabingelela simukela nonke njengamanje la. Our Deputy Minister will be doing the welcome, so I don't have to make any welcoming remarks. But first and foremost, we would like to have everybody who is still outside to move in and be settled. And we would like to just have firstly Miles before we have an entertainment, so that we all understand the rules here. In case of any emergency, we get that explanation. It's one of the very critical issues that needs to be done for us to know what needs to happen. Miles, will you please address us on the security issues? Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Skyring Studios. I won't be long. What we want to do is just have a couple of announcements regarding the emergency exits and certain of the house rules. So where we are sitting here is Studio 5, and the main exit is at the back, where you go left or right, and there are signs that will show you where the exits are for the emergency staircases in case of an emergency. There are certain places which are off limits. Only accredited staff can access those. And then we would like to say that if you need to smoke, there is a 6-level parking. There's also a ramp that leads you down to 6th level if there are people gathering in the main circulation area to your left. If you are unsure of anything about the facility, please, there are people who will be able to direct you. If not, ask someone at reception and they will direct you to the right people. Thank you very much.
Just to make sure that we're not only watching the movies and the film, we thought that we must break the ice by having just a short poem, but it's got an instrumentation accompaniment. And once that is done, I will then introduce my co-program director and myself, and we will hit the ground running. But for now, you've been standing, you've been driving, you've been in traffic, you've been swearing or sonnet. So let us have the icebreaker, and we'll allow the band to make sure that they entertain us just briefly. Shalif, over to you.
Re nyana sa. Re goga a ke lutli. Le butlile. Ya re. Rona re goga re aibo wena. Rona re goga re aibo wena. Naga ke a rona ntso tsa ganna le wena re goga megaga re a tlhanoga re aibo we fa naga ke a rona ntso tsa ganna le wena re goga megaga re a tlhanoga re aibo we fa naga bana ba mmo re a tlhanoga ntso tsa ganna le wena re a tlhanoga re aibo we fa naga e chaile ya go kgarakgatsega bana ba mmo re a tlhanoga ga se go roga tsela go retologa ga se go roga tsela go retologa re gwanta re gata mmogo re ikgoga dikgato re tsapoga re gwanta re le botsoga tsoga e batla masojanaga re ganne phakela go phimoga ra sutla masigo le dikgaga re shebelana go fatlhoga re tlhomolana difaga bike ntsho tsa ganna le wena re ananoga ke re phefo difoka re menoga phefo difoka re menoga le naga e re belega re tshegetsa re ka toga re sa bolo go tlatoga re fologa ra goroga tsatsi le ra goga maru a poga ke re maru a poga ya ikala naga le rumo la romega ba boa ba kgokologa bokgodumodumo ba thubega dimpa ba tlhobega diphuka mekrenko ya robega megatla ya kgaoga aga ba tšatšara ga ba jagantwa diaga di bataga gedagtetsa phuremaga maragaraga dibotlola mafiega bo freedom tomorrow lo a diega bo sarafina ba stadaga ke re aibo we fandagana aga rona re gogamga bana ba mbure a tlhanoga bana ba mmore a tlhanoga re re aibo we fa naga ke re goga megaga re a tlhanoga re goga megaga re a tlhanoga re re aibo we naga bana ba mmore a tlhanoga ntso tsa ganna le wena re a tlhanoga re re aibo we fa naga ke re bo sarafina ba staraga bo freedom tomorrow ke re lo a diega ke re aibo we fa Grand Buffett.
Khalifa, thank you very much. And a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, again. I've just decided that this task of translating what was being said in this poem will be a delegation upward. The Deputy Minister, Madam Socho, will translate what exactly was being said so that we all are in the same space. But it has great relevance to today's program. Honorable Minister and Honorable Deputy Minister, over the past few months, I have personally learned so many things about the creative cultural industry and filmmakers. One of them is that the industry has so many acronyms. And it's just quite an interesting thing. So to be able to outline these acronyms, I will request my co-pilot, the co-presenter from the industry, and that is Sis Xoliswa Sithole, to come and join me. and you know she is one of the greats in this sector, a two-time BAFTA winner and a Peabody winner, amongst many accolades that she has achieved. And will you just join me so that I'm not that lonely here?
Ndiyabonga Baba Mkhize Kabazela Kamavovo. Ndiyabonga.
No, thank you very much. So these acronyms that we are talking about here, you've got CBFA, DFA, IBFC, IPO, OAMF, PMA, SAACYF, SICAF, SAGA and SAGE, SASFED, SWIFT, WGSA. Yo, it's just endless. But my name, ladies and gentlemen, is Vusi Mkhize, the Director General of the Department of Arts and Culture. And as always, with all these acronyms here, I think you are the only one who can be my anchor.
No, I also learned that when we were doing the reference group. We are many, but hopefully chasing the same vision and the same goal. Yes, DG, those represent the 12 industry organizations that actually form, you know what I mean, we were working together as part of the reference group. And that reference group is partly why we are here today, and we would really, really like to thank the reference group. May we please give them a round of applause.
If they can stand, it would be great.
Can they stand, please? The people who helped put all of this together, they gave up their time. A lot of emotions, fighting, but it all turned out beautifully. There's the DA, DTI, DOC, that's also the government acronym, so it's not only us, it's you as well. DSBD, DOL, CATA, NFVF, KZNF, ICASA, SACO, and a new baby called SAV, SAAVF. They are the new young lions of the film industry, and many other national and provincial institutions. On behalf of the reference group and the industry, we would like to thank the Minister of Arts and Culture, Mr. Nathi Mthethwa Unyambose, and my co-chair, DG Mkhize Kabazela Kamavovo, and the Deputy Minister, Dlamini. Yeah, we were battling how we pronounce your name, but yes, Dlamini. And also the vessel of our institutional memory at the Department of Arts and Culture, Ms. Lindindebele Koka. All of this was really the vision of the Minister of Arts and Culture saying, I would like to give you a platform. We are not interfering in terms of what we want to come out of this. You as the industry, tell us, what are your concerns? It mustn't be another talk shop. We need to come together and work towards a 5-year development goal that is actually spearheaded by the film industry. Thank you very much.
No, thanks very much, Co-Program Director, Sisqoli. This indeed is a sign that our government has prioritized the cultural and creative industries as an important cog in shaping our future as we navigate the 4th industrial revolution. It is therefore befitting that the overall theme for this summit is transformation and innovation in the South African film audiovisual industry and the 4th industrial revolution. The most crucial question we all have to ask ourselves, as well as government, is the industry in South Africa at large, are we geared for change? Furthermore, what are the critical factors that will distinctly position and brand the South African film industry within the global context? These are the global goals that we need to respond to as we navigate ourselves as South African film industry within the global village. The first one is to then among other key messages and key things we'd like to achieve here, the very first goal and objective is we must advance a common consensus. We must advance a proposal to position a distinctly identity that will reflect and make South African film industry stand out. Secondly, we must galvanize a common consensus about the potential of the South African film industry to be an instrument for nation building and economic growth. And the third goal that we would like to achieve out of this exercise is to produce key recommendations towards a 5-year implementation plan. And this is based on what Xolisa had said, that Minister gave a directive, move away from a talk show and get into action. And this is a call to action. Have the implementation plan beyond the discussions. And therefore, we are looking forward to that.
We have structured the summit to ensure that we produce recommendations to inform a 5-year strategic plan that will inform how we move forward as an industry. There will be presentations, moderated and panel-led discussions on select themes and topics that reflect the objectives of the summit and set the scene for the next 2 days. Please, we would like you to understand that we knew that we only had 2 days. So there are certain objectives that we couldn't put in the program. Animation, for instance, very important. That's another discussion. So please understand that we wanted to make the most of the 2 days, and also it was a consensus amongst many bodies for us to come up with what we have. So please don't feel aggrieved if some of the very important concerns are not part of this. Delegates, please decide beforehand which breakaway commission you will attend. And for consistency, please stick to the same commission. And please, we can't all just go maybe to funding, because we know that actually DTI, DAC, and because we're all looking for money, right? But there are also other sessions that are equally important. And it will be very important for us to just try and spread ourselves amongst all of those sessions. And although we can't tell you where to go, because you obviously want to go to a commission that works for you and that speaks to you, but it's a request we are making. And tomorrow morning, we will begin again here in plenary, and commissions will then meet again to prepare for the final report. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, allow me to ask our Deputy Minister, Deputy Minister Sochu, to come and do the welcoming note. Thank you.
So you are a little bit taller than me, ne? Because I'm sure Halimponi Lumpona, they were not sure of it. But it's fine. Thank you very much, Program Director. Yeah, hi buena vandag. Yeah, that's the topic that we are engaged in as the nation, the topic of the land. But he's saying that not tomorrow, today, Minister, must get our land back today. I hope then we as politicians will have then to listen and adhere to that. Minister of Arts and Culture, Nyambos, Mr. Mteto, senior government officials present here, led by yourself, DG, our guests, ladies and gentlemen. Minister, let me start by saying we've come to the end of our term. I'm sure everyone is aware that maybe we are left with only 2 months, if I count correctly. So it means that from today onwards, we are not sure what's going to happen to us after June. But I must say that knowing my party, I'm sure that for the 3rd time, I will be with you again. I was with the minister in the police. He left me there. And then after some few years, if not 2 or 3, and then I joined him in arts and culture. But what is amazing, Minister, when I was deployed into the police, I was called by the president. And then I was told that I'm going to join you in the police. I didn't ask many things. That's my leader, that's the president of the country and the president of my party. But when I was deployed in arts and culture, I was called in by the president. That's the difference. The first one I was told telephonically, uyazi ke ngane yami uzawusebenza nomthetho pha emaphoyiseni. But this one, I was called in and I was given a mandate, of which I never discussed with you. The president, when he called me, I had one thing in my mind, which I never thought I will be redeployed from where I am to where I am today, where I was to where I am today. As you might know that I started being in the police from Parliament from 1999. I was in the police committee until I became the Deputy Minister, 2010. Now 2017, early 2017, I think somewhere in March, here I am being called by the president. And then there was only one mandate that the president gave to me, because I was asking myself, hey, mina mos angazi lutho, ngizazala nje amaphoyisa kuphela vele, angazi lutho. But the president said to me, I want you again to go and join Minister Mteto. That, oh, Nkosi yami, yini ngalo Mteto Nkosi yami. And this time around, I want you to go and assist your minister, Minister Mteto, to transform that industry and the sector. Ngathi hayi ngiyatransformile mosamaphoyisa, no transform again ngapha yamanje. Mina, I must say that, Minister, I didn't know that this is such a serious business. I was telling Sis Nandipa, was it you, when I told that, mina bengicima kuyaculwa qha apha kuyadanswa, and I was looking forward to dance. And the way you were saying to me, zinculisti. Yeah, so I was even worried, Minister, to come here because I had a history in ngenculisti. What they did to me, emperors. You requested me to go and stand in for yourself because I think you were going overseas or something like that. And the Nculis didn't want to see me. And they said, namhlanje akuzukhuluma muntu, la kuzawukhuluma thina. And then when I was invited to this one, I said, oh, Nkosi yami, ndiyodibana la nto angalamini kwakhona. And the DG assured me, ukuthi, no, now uyodibana nabantu aba serious. I'm not saying that Nculis are not serious. Yeah. So, by so saying, Minister, Dithando ukuthi the kind of work that we are doing is a very serious thing because it deals with human beings and their lives. The summit takes place against the background of a policy shift introduced by the Department of Arts and Culture's revised white paper on arts and culture and heritage of 2017. Minister, when we went to cabinet, we wanted to add heritage on the name of the department. We wanted to change the department from arts and culture. We said arts, culture, and heritage. I remember very well, DG was so sure that we are going to win that one. And then the president, within a second, said that, aye, you can't put that one. Because after the election, you might have more departments within yourselves. So the name is going to be too long. Sabuya. So we must expect anything, Minister, that we must maybe water and sanitation, heritage, culture, arts, we don't know. But that's what we were told then. But in reality, it is as culture and heritage. This revised white paper on arts and culture and heritage has guided and shaped the South African film industry to date. The summit also takes place against the backdrop of South Africa's geopolitical position within the African continent. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa of 1996 provides for free speech, which safeguards creators and allows them to tell their stories, stories that question or provoke and mirror their understanding of the society we live in. Through this lens of free speech, ours is a story to tell that reflects our past, present, and future, and the state of our society. As the artists mirror the state of their society, so should we, as a caring government, review the state in which artists operates under. In the main, under the theme of the transformation and innovation in the fourth industrial revolution, this gathering will, amongst others, assess the extent to which current and emerging legislations and policies either enhance or hinder the transformation and development of the film and television industry in South Africa. It will also evaluate the extent to which the South African film industry, while premised on Pan-Africanism, in catching up on or aligning itself with emerging trends and local development. Program directors, the summit will further evaluate the successes and challenges of national and regional film industries, and to streamline activities aimed at growing the South African audiovisual industry across the country. So for 2 days, you will interrogate and unpack 5 sub-themes with the sole aim of ensuring that the industry emerges with critical recommendations and solutions that will transform and grow the sector. Recommendation will locate the sponsors within the environment of the fourth industrial revolution, but I would like to emphasize that while you deliberate about the critical impact of making films, do not forget that at the heart of every art storytelling, there are some human beings whose rights and environment they work in is critical in contributing to the successes if this industry is to revive and grow. You know what I'm talking about. We had incidents previously, but what happened to our actors? Even with the longest history of the South African film industry, still there are no regulations, standards, or codes of conduct that regulate the working conditions of freelancers in the South African audiovisual industry. The working conditions are based on ad hoc basis. That is, they work from contract to contract. Concerns about general working conditions include genderless activities, sexual harassment, gender inequality, wage disparity, and lack of social security. Here's what I'm talking about. A good example is generations. Ladies and gentlemen, given our caring government, it is unthinkable that, according to South African law, freelancers are independent contractors and not employees. There is a little or no labor protection, which is a deterrent for many wishing to enter this industry. Protecting measures needed by freelancers include bargaining forums, dispute resolution mechanism, safety standards, and codes of conduct. These protection measures are imperative to ensure safe working conditions and job security of existing industry practitioners and to attract new workers into the industry. It will be critical that as you deliberate, you must explore all facets of this problem and come out of this summit with concrete implementable ideas of what it would require to change the status quo. As you have said correctly, that program directors, that we must move away from talk shops now. We must make sure that whatever decision or resolution that will be taken by this collective, we implement them with yourselves, of course. Most importantly, it will be critical that you come out of the deliberations with one united voice on what needs to be done about conditions and the environment in which film practitioners work in. Because if you are divided, you are very far from achieving what you want. Therefore, it is very important that we get united with what we need as an industry in order for us to be able to implement that. The social security of creative workers is amongst those matters to be addressed with urgency. The Department of Social Development was tasked to come up with a plan for social security for artists. I know that the focus of discussions is about the impact of the digital age, but I would really like to implore you to come up with solutions that will address the conditions of our artists. Yourselves, you know the conditions that they're working under. So it is very important that you guide us on how then we can regulate that. On that note, I would like to welcome all of you to the South African Film Summit, and I would like to say to Minister Mthethwa, I'm very much impressed by the way you are so committed when it comes to this environment where myself and you are deployed. Ungamone quiet, Minister. You can call you at 1 o'clock a.m. Uzongikhumbuza kusasa DM uthi la nto besikhulumile basizayenza siyenze at 1 a.m. But now what is amazing, ngizibuza uba inoba uMrs Mthethwa uphi makufonelwa mina ngo-1 ngoba mina anginamwe. Because I don't have a husband. He can even call me at 4, 5, 6. But the kind of the minister that you have is a very committed individual when it comes to your plight. I wish you good luck in your deliberations for the next 2 days. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister Socho Madlamini. Thank you very much. Going to ask my chief here.
It's just about height. DM, it's not your fault, I understand. But it's okay that you are taller than me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Deputy Minister. I think we're all now free, and I think we have a sense of why we're here. Without much ado and waste of time, firstly, let me recognize the presence of our MEC Gauteng, and that is Ms. Faithma Zibugo, MEC Odumo. We have your seat in front, and can I please ask her to... There is no defiance, MEC. We're waiting for you. We can't proceed. So as we then proceed, I will be introducing Dr. and Professor, our well-renowned speaker, our well-renowned scientist, engineer, and who will be addressing us now. MEC, please. We're waiting for you. Ladies and gentlemen, in our panelists and the speakers this morning, I would like just to introduce them to you and make you aware who they are. We do have in our midst, and we're very fortunate that we have Professor Chilitsi Marwala, who will be delivering the theme overview, the Fourth Industrial Revolution and Implications for Transformation and Innovation in the South African Creative Economy. Key focus on audiovisual industries. Those who might not be aware, Professor Chilitsi Marwala is Vice Chancellor and Principal at the University of Johannesburg since January 2018. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, magna cum laude, from the Case Western Reserve University in the United States of America. He holds a Master's of Engineering from the University of Pretoria, a PhD in Engineering from the University of Cambridge, and was a postdoctoral researcher associate at the Imperial College in London. He has published 9 books and supervised as many masters and PhD students as you can imagine. His CV is quite impressive, but for now, his task is very clear. Come, Professor, and address us on the 4th Industrial Revolution. Thank you.
Thank you, DG. Sanwonan. Dumelang. Abusheni. Dimacheloni. Minister Mthethwa, Deputy Minister, MEC Mazibuko, and Anansin, and also Miss Sithole, who is our MC. When I was invited to come and speak amongst filmmakers, I was actually asking myself, how does an engineer actually come and speak about film? What people don't know is that I'm actually a failed artist. So when I was doing an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering, I actually took 3 acting classes. They're actually in my transcript. I took introduction to acting. I even acted on My Children, My Africa. I was Tammy Mbikwana in that book. And I took stagecraft, and I took advanced acting. So for those who are thinking about expanding the cast of Generation, I am available. So what I would like to talk about, I have prepared a presentation. I don't know whether somebody will have to go to the presentation, really to talk about what the 4th Industrial Revolution is all about, and how it is changing our lives, and how it is potentially going to change South Africa's film industry. One of the things that has often concerned me about South Africa's film industry is that it has not necessarily entered the scientific space. About 18 years ago, there was a movie called AI, Artificial Intelligence. Still remember that movie? I mean, it's almost 18 years ago. Not too long ago, we had Black Panther. My question is, why was Black Panther not done in Johannesburg, but done in Hollywood? I think those are the things that we need to also start thinking about, because technology is not really just about improving what we do as filmmakers. It is also about writing and producing films that are about technology. We all have watched RoboCop, The Terminator. Of course, if you go and actually watch certainly the first Terminator, they mention the word neural networks about 15 times. Of course, I will talk a little bit about this in my talk. So if we can just go to the first slide. Yeah, I mean, the people must be able to see the slide. Oh, you can see behind me. Oh, okay. I thought the sides would be better. So if we can just move to the second slide, because I don't have the technological gadgets to be able to move forward. You see, this issue of automation is very, very important. Okay, so maybe before I talk about the 4th Industrial Revolution, it is important for me to talk about the Industrial Revolution. What is this thing called the Industrial Revolution? The Industrial Revolution is basically the idea and the practice of using technology to produce goods and services. And the first Industrial Revolution happened in the United Kingdom. And for those of you who have lived in the United Kingdom, if you just wander to a pub, you will wonder how in the world did these people came up with the first industrial revolution. And there is because statistically it should have happened in India or China, because the populations are just big, you know. And the reason why it happened in England was because just before the first industrial revolution, there was something called the scientific revolution that gave us Newton, that gave us Watson and all other great scientists. And because of that scientific revolution, we were able to make machines that are able to produce things that used to be done by human beings. Now, when the first industrial revolution happened in 1700s, only 60 years later did the first steam engine arrive in South Africa. You will agree with me that we cannot afford to be 60 years behind. The second industrial revolution happened with ideas that started also in England. There's a guy called Maxwell who was playing around with a magnet, and he realized that if you have a magnet and you have something that conducts electricity, every time you move it, electricity is generated. And that's basically how Eskom generates electricity. They heat water, which moves a big conductor next to a magnet. And of course, the reverse of that is that if you put electricity in a conductor next to a magnet, it moves. This is what you call an electric motor. It's what you find in your lawnmower in your homes. And of course, we were again spectators in the second industrial revolution. In fact, as the second industrial revolution was happening, it was shortly after the Battle of Isandlwana, where we actually won the battle but lost the war. And the reason why we lost the war was because we had not mastered technological ways of organizing ourselves. Then we come to the third industrial revolution that happened in the United States, semiconductors, something that conducts electricity under certain conditions. And of course, this is what gave us a transistor. All our phones have transistors, all our computers have transistors. Up to today, 70 years after the discovery of a transistor, South Africa does not have a single semiconductor company. So this is quite a concern. Now we are in the era called the fourth industrial revolution. And the fourth industrial revolution is when we make machines that are intelligent, that are able to do things intelligently. I actually did a PhD in artificial intelligence about more than 20 years ago. So I'm going to perhaps even talk a little bit briefly about what this artificial intelligence is all about. If we could just go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Now, this fourth industrial revolution is really a confluence of advances in digital technology, in the physical space, as well as the biological spaces. We are becoming technological beings. I'm told that one of the most effective ways of torturing people is to separate them from their smartphones for 2 hours. In fact, studies have been done which shows that the brain activity of people who have been separated from their phones is actually very similar to the brain activity of somebody who is trying to stop doing drugs. So this is because it's a confluence, because the digital is part of us, and it's part of the physical and the biological. So if we can just move to the next slide. So artificial intelligence is basically a technique of making machines intelligent. And they can be intelligent so that they can be able to do or assist us to be able to do things that we normally will require a human being to do. Like editing a film now. They're using artificial intelligence. Now you have real-time speech recognition technology that actually is able to detect when people are using words that are not supposed to be said in public, and then obviously blocking that. Much, much more quicker than we will normally do. So this is really what artificial intelligence is all about. There are various types of artificial intelligence. Everybody talks about machine learning. You have computational intelligence, and you also have soft computing. Now, if you could just go next. So this is an example of the work that we did about 2009. It was on the cover of New Scientist. So we were using what is called soft computing. That is artificial intelligence where you don't have huge amounts of data. So we build these intelligent agents that are able to operate autonomously, and these intelligent agents that we build actually learn how to bluff. Bluffing is a very complex human activity. No other animal actually bluffs except us. And I'm not bluffing, by the way. So this is an example of how you can use soft computing in order to build machines that can be able to bluff. Of course, this is quite important to the insurance industry when you drive that car into a wall and you call them and say, I want to make a claim, and they say, were you drunk? And you said no. It probably will be able to detect that you're bluffing just by the sound of your voice. That's an example of artificial intelligence. If we could just move on. The other type of artificial intelligence is what we call computational intelligence. Computational intelligence is the idea of looking at some very complicated social structures and making algorithms that are able to replicate that. So an example is what we call ant colony optimization. So if you look at, on the left-hand side, you see an anthill. An anthill is a very complicated structure. In fact, what you are seeing there is the tip of the iceberg. I actually took this picture when I was home in Limpopo. So how do such small little organisms make such complicated piece of art? In fact, if you go to YouTube and you actually study something on ant colony, somebody, I think it was an American guy, it's a horrible thing that he did. So he went and took aluminium and boiled it and put it inside that anthill and then dug to see how it looks like. He calls it art, by the way. You know, I don't think that is art. I think that is murder. And but the things that he was able to find when he excavated that aluminium was actually quite a complicated structure that was built by these ants. And these ants, you can see in the middle of that diagram, they are sitting on my hand. You might be wondering, why are these ants that build such a complicated structure sitting on my hand? I know, Eric Mieni, you are salivating already. We eat them in Limpopo, you know. I know it's not kosher, but they taste very, very nice. They taste very nice. But the first person to actually discover the intelligence of the ants was a South African poet called Eugene Marey. And Eugene studied these things. Apparently, he lived in somewhere in Limpopo province. He studied these things and he published his work in a magazine called Huisgenoot. And the Dutch Nobel Prize winner actually read Huisgenoot and he admired the work and he republished as his own. Of course, if you speak Dutch, you probably will be able to read Huisgenoot. But now, these things, these ants, you know, for those of you who have watched them, you will sometimes see them forming a straight line in your houses. That is actually the shortest distance from their nest to the food source. And your map, your electronic map, actually uses that intelligence to be able to find the shortest distance from your home to this venue. So it's an example of computational intelligence. If we can just move forward. Now you have machine learning. Everybody is talking about machine learning. This is really inspired by the way our brain actually functions. You have the human brain, and you look at the mechanism, and you design an algorithm that is able to do what a human being is able to do. And that is really what it is all about. It requires data. It requires data, and if you could just move forward, if you can just move forward to the next slide. So it requires quite a lot of data. By the way, the book that is sitting next is actually the book that I wrote. You can go to Amazon and buy it. So what happens now is that on the left-hand side is input, and on the right-hand side is output. If the input is your face and the output is who you are, we call this a speech recognition tool. This whole framework actually depends on data. Not too long ago, the four of us went to Singapore. It was me, it was the director of our Johannesburg Institute of Advanced Study, Bongani Ngqulunga, and it was Peter Veil, and it was Koos van der Merwe. So, when you go to the Singaporean embassy, airport, you have this machine that you put your passport, but there is a camera that is looking at you. So it looks at the picture that it is seeing of a person standing there and compare that with a picture on a passport. And if the pictures are the same, it allows you to go through. As a vice chancellor, I was the first person to get in, and I did that. It could not recognize me. So if it does not recognize you, it prints a slip, and then you have to go to the human to assist you. Then came Peter Veil. Peter Veil's ancestry is from England. It could recognize him. Then comes Bongani Ngqulunga. Bongani comes from Mahlabathini. It could not recognize him. Then came Koos. It could recognize him. I say, this thing is discriminating against me and Bongani. It's because these machines require huge amounts of data. And in fact, much of the data that are used to train these machines are collected in Europe, North America, and Asia. Not Mahlabathini or Dutuni, where I come from. Again, these things are actually doing what people do. They are discriminating. And of course, this has a whole lot of implications on what we have to do as universities to make sure that this discrimination does not persist. Now, if we could just move on. So this is an example of, what happened? Of an example of a car that, at a university where I'm a visiting professor. It is being driven by a robot. So you can even get robots to act. Now, look, it can be able to walk. The chief of my village is a woman, and every time I see her, I have to go on my knees. If I take this robot to my village, it will actually be respectful. It can be able to open doors. And by the way, it's using neural network, that machine learning that I showed you before. It can be able to do even engineering work. By the way, this is not a fiction. This is a reality. So, there are many things that it can be able to do. I mean, not too long ago, we had 3 firefighters that died here in Johannesburg. Dangerous work probably should not be done by human beings. It should be done by machines like these ones. Because they cannot feel the pain, and if they die, we probably will not miss them as much as we would miss human beings. If we could just move forward. So this machine can be able to learn using neural network. It can be able to sense its environment. It can see its environment. It can be able to react to its environment. It can be able to drive. It can even walk. It can kneel. And because of that, we say it is almost human. Because it is almost human, we say it is artificially intelligent. But there are many things it will not be able to do. Do you think it can fall in love? Absolutely not. Is it conscious? No. Can COSATU recruit it to be a member of its union? Of course, it cannot respond to the call, robots of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. And this is not a joke. Before, when I came back from London, I used to brew beer, Mkomboti, South African breweries. And there used to be a brewery in Ebai, Port Elizabeth. That brewery used to employ about 4,000 people. 20 years ago, we automated that brewery. It could be operated, if you go to it today, it can be operated by 35 people. It produces more alcohol than when it was operated by 4,000 people. So this is real. So artificial intelligence is changing all aspects of our lives. So what I intend to do today is just to show you what is going on, to allow you to think about what are some of the possibilities in which you can be able to use this technology to be able to do what you do much better. How do you transform your industry using automation, using digital technology, and so on and so forth? Very, very important issues. So if we can just move forward. I mean, this is just an example of what artificial intelligence is actually doing. It is changing completely the world of finance in ways that we can never imagine. When you go and apply for a loan, a human being is no longer the most effective way of determining whether you get a loan or not. In fact, the machine is able to do that. It's changing both the practice of economics as well as the thinking of economics. This is an example of two books that we wrote on how it is changing the practice of economics and also how it is changing the theory of economics. If we could just move forward. So another example of the work that we did quite a number of years ago. To be honest, when we did this work, it was out of personal interest. So I went to a bank to apply for a loan so that I can buy a house. See, I'm not advantaged in terms of monopoly capital. And when I went there, they looked at me and they said, of course, you qualify for the loan. They gave me a loan. They said, but what happens if you die? Who is going to cover your liabilities? So they asked me to get a life insurance. Then I went and filled the form, and then they said, I need to take an HIV test. Still remember 20 years ago when you go to find a life insurance, they ask you to take an HIV test. Thank you very much for giving me 10 minutes. And that's precisely what I did. And then I realized that maybe we can build a machine that will be able to do this thing, estimate the risk that they are trying to estimate. Again, it's another example. If we can just move forward quickly. Move forward another quickly. Again. So this is another work that we did quite a number of years ago. It's a patent. We actually have a US patent on this. It's when somebody has lost their voice boxes because of cancer, but they can still move their tongue. So you put that device in the mouth, and the artificial intelligence is able to simulate what you are saying and speak it. Very, very important work. Again, it's an example of the good things that artificial intelligence is doing. If we could just move forward again. again. So this is the work that it was done by my student, Dr. Busisiwe Vilakazi. She was my master's student. She went and did a PhD at Oxford in artificial intelligence. Now, what happened was my first teacher was my grandmother. She used to make clay pots. So I will accompany her to the river to look for clay, and then she will select clay. When I did engineering, they call that material selection. And then she will come back, and then she will make the clay, and then she will put it in the sun, and then she will go and bake it. And then after she bakes it, she will allow it to cool very, very slowly. There's a German mathematician called Boltzmann who actually studied how you cool things down so that they don't crack. My grandmother did not know who Boltzmann was, but knew how to cool it down. After that, she will knock each pot to listen to it. As she was growing older, I realized that she was throwing away very good pots because her hearing was deteriorating. So what we did here was, how do we take this to the fourth industrial revolution? Instead of listening with her ear, we can be able to have a device that listens. Instead of her mind trying to make sense of this, she used to have an algorithm that says that if it rings for a long time, it's a good pot. If it rings for a short time, it's a bad pot. You put it in an artificial intelligent machine, and you are able to do exactly which pot is good and which pot is bad. Again, it's another example of how artificial intelligence has been used. If we move forward, so it's another example of how do we simulate things. You know, in film industry, especially when you come to animation, animation used to be very, very expensive in the past because you almost had to draw everything frame by frame. Now with intelligent softwares, that thing is automated, and it is even cheaper than what it is. What we need to do is for us to start training people who are able to understand that technology and develop that technology so that they can be able to, to participate in that industry. So this is another type of work that we can be able to do. I'm almost done. If you can just move forward. Move forward. So this is, a few years ago, me and my student was very worried about the Cuban doctors in our hospitals because they did not know how to speak the local language. So we said, can we devise a machine that you can speak to it in English and it will be able to translate it into Sisutu Salibua, Spade. And Machaba, who was a student who did this, did it very well, and it worked. The device worked. And then we decided that we wanted to do the same device for isiXhosa. That was when our problem started. So every time there was a click, the machine actually thought it was noise. So we were very worried. We said, why is that the case? When you go and study it linguistically, you realize that Xhosa is actually two languages being spoken. It's a Bantu language, which is a language, that group of languages that is spoken all the way to Tanzania. They actually sound the same. The words are just a twist of one another. And they don't have clicks. And then is the Khoisan language that have clicks. And the reason why Xhosa was such a difficult language to translate is because it is predominantly a Bantu language. In fact, Xhosa has less than 10% clicks. So what you see is that, you see a signal like this, then you see a click, and then you see a signal, then you see a click, and so on. And the machine gets confused about that. So what it means for us to be able to unlock the language through technology, it means we need to design algorithms that are able to work with languages that are mixed, that are completely different, where one language completely dominates another one. And those algorithms don't exist at the moment. Secondly, the pre-processing that needs to be done in order to understand the language actually has to be done such that it is able to pre-process a dual language that is as complicated. I guess what I'm saying is that whatever technology we bring into the country, we have to contextualize it. Whatever technology we bring into the country, it has to be contextualized. And secondly, what I am saying is that the fourth industrial revolution is here. Let us not be afraid of it. Let us adopt it. Let us adopt it so that we can be able to do what we are doing better. And the third thing that I would like to leave you with is that let us write stories about ourselves. Let us write stories about ourselves, whether it is stories about, the indigenous knowledge on how those engineers in our communities make clay pots. If you go to the internet, you will not find any YouTube footage of these things. And many of the people who actually know how to do these things will not be with us 10 years from today. Whether it is the story of how our societies viewed ants and how it evolved and how Eugene Marais was able to find out, those are our stories. And we are not writing about them. And the last thing is that we should also start writing about science fiction. Science fiction, there's so much science in our community. Let's write stories about those things. And lastly, please, if you have a role for me to play, I'm trained as an actor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. That was very stimulating and informative. I would like to introduce our next speakers. They are young, dynamic, and it's just very important. We felt it was very important to have young people educate us. We were young once, and they are fearless, determined, and a lot of ambition. So I'd like to call to the stage Ms. Obakeng Malope. She's the director of Malcorp Trading and Projects, and Obakeng holds a diploma in television production, Boston Media, and documentary filmmaker from Big Fish Film School. And the other young person that we would like to come on stage, they are both going to do a presentation, is Ms. Mpho Ntatleling, is founder and CEO of OLL Africa Media Foundation and an arts advocate. Please come to the stage.
Good day. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, Director General, officials of the Department of Arts and Culture, and from other provinces, industry organizations presented here today, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocol observed. My name is Obakeng Malope. I was born in a small village called Jericho in Northwest Province. I knew by the time I was in high school that I wanted to be a filmmaker. I used to call a YoTV so I could hear my voice on television. Yeah, we all did that. As a young girl from a small village, the script of my life was that once I finished school, I would look for a 9-to-5 job as everybody else. However, I had a different dream. I wanted to pursue a career in television, one that is often frowned upon and discouraged in many families. Mine was no different. We all read and hear about stories of well-known and celebrated stars who die poor, or those who seen catching taxis and making newspapers headlines for being poor and destitute. It is a fact that a career in the arts is one that attracts skepticism, especially in a country like ours where unemployment is so high. It is not a real career, some say. Like many who came through this experience, I had to convince my parents that studying filmmaking is the best for me, and I'm grateful that they eventually agreed. Coming to Johannesburg, the city of gold, to study documentary filmmaking at a college in Sandton was my dream. After graduating, like many unemployed young graduates, I could not find a job, let alone my dream job. Unfortunately, I had to pack my bags, go back home in Jericho, where I lived the life of an unemployed graduate for a year. A year later, I packed my bags and headed to Johannesburg again. I begged my mom to pay my rent for 6 months. My promise to her was that I would become a traffic officer if I can't find a job. Just as she has wished, I had to fight for my dream. I registered my company, Malcorp Trading and Projects, my very own film production company. Thank you. My friend Buntle told me about a multi-choice film training institute hosted by Big Fish School of Filmmaking. I applied, and out of 600 applicants, I was one of the 20 applicants that made the cut. Thank you. We had 10 projects to make in 12 months, pitching these projects to broadcasters. 8 of my concepts were selected. One of my films, Mr. Selvin, was broadcasted on Zanzi Magic, and Fighting Homophobia received an award for special mention Best Sound in a Public Service Announcement at Mnet Tech Awards 2012. Thank you. I was one of the 3 lucky participants who were recommended to a production company that approached Big Fish to hire some of the 3 graduates from their program. Once employed, I started out in the production company as a coffee lady. We all know that. Serving crew and as a runner. I worked my way up the ranks where I am today. I am one of the lucky few who did not fall through the cracks, leave this industry to find a job in another sector of the economy, or become one of the youth unemployed statistics. Although I managed to get my film funded by the NAVF and traveled around the world attending film festivals and markets, it has taken me 10 years of finding rejection letters to get to where I am today. I can confidently put together a bankable funding proposal now. In addition, it took me exactly 10 international film festivals to finally score a distribution deal in Canada for one of my films. Thank you. It is only this year that through funding from the National Film and Video Foundation, National Youth Funding Agency, and the Small Enterprise Development Agency that I'm working on my company's first documentary short film where I own the rights. Advocating for transformation in this industry is one of my passions. Not only is overdue but necessary, but inclusivity, especially for young people. Positions I hold as a board member for the Documentary Film Association of South Africa and a member of the South African Screen Writers Film Federations are a vehicle of my advocacy work. I have observed that many young black women, it is easier to work for a production house rather than to strive to produce a film under their own companies. Why? Many of us thought that we would enter this industry and make our own films and make it. Many of us know that this is fiction. Okay, sorry, time. Okay. The reality is that women, particularly black women, struggle to find jobs in the industry. Ours is an industry that is male and white dominated, a double jeopardy for black women. Women raising children and are subjected to long working hours, no medical aid insurance, far less salaries than our male counterparts, or for doing the same work and sexual harassment. The list goes on. Did you know that 85% of women who are SWIFT members reported in a survey that they have been sexually harassed? 20% have been sexually assaulted or raped, and 95% of women surveyed express frustration and not being given a chance to even enter the directing, producing, cinematography, editing profession. These conditions are part of the culture of the industry, and it is women who must adapt or leave. This is unacceptable and cannot be allowed to continue in South Africa. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to introduce our next speaker. I'm sorry, but we are running out of time and we are trying to get people to do their presentations in a much shorter time.
Roar, young lions, roar! Roar, young lions, roar! We as young people
are often misunderstood and pitted against veterans to fight for a place in the industry where networks and experience is everything. Our robustness is not a form of disrespect or disregard of your efforts to engage with us in a manner, but an echo of frustration, because at times, we the youth have no access to events like these. No access to both government and private sector resources. Our ability to access quality equipment, financial incentives, and comply with funding policies, your red tapes, remain the biggest gatekeeping tool that hampers our entry, progression, and overall participation in this industry. This country and this industry is not short on conferences, summits, and indabas. However, after all this talk, we as young people want to see tangible results and progress. It is important that we have a review of the summit so that this time next year, we can evaluate the progress that would have made in implementing the 5-year strategic plan that will culminate from these 2 days. It is also essential to make sure that the transformation we want to see manifests for real this time. We call upon you to create a space and an environment that will enable young filmmakers to build and run sustainable businesses. Running such businesses requires a host of technical, creative, and financial skills which are not guaranteed by tertiary qualification only. Even learning on the job does not expose us to all the business skills. You are all aware of how expensive film school is, am I right? Especially in the private education system. So skills transfer is necessary. Otherwise, how will we as an industry guarantee the skills that attract international productions to shoot in South Africa are not lost when a few handful of people leave the country, retire, or die? We want to work and create a better South Africa as young people. Contribute, pay taxes, build a better South Africa for us and the future generation. The success and viability of South African culture and creative economy is at risk if transformation does not take place. What will happen to us young people, to this country, if this economy does not include the largest population group in the future of this country? According to the United Nations Development Programme, it is said that Africa has the youngest population in the world. It is estimated that by 2055, the continent's youth population aged 15 to 24 will more than double the total of 226 million. Yet the continent remains stubbornly dominant politically, economically, and socially to us as young people. The success of African government efforts to address this issue will be the single most important factor determining whether the continent prospers or suffers in the future. We call to all of you that we need to concentrate on nurturing and accelerating the potential of the youth who are the future and the majority. We call on local government, provincial and national government, the private sector as well, to implement many interventions that are already in place to support the industry. Further, we recommend an industry skills transfer program where industry legends can pass on valuable skills and knowledge. We also say a dedication to radical transformation as well. Skills development funds, including but not limited to MICT CEDA, are resources that are already available. Can we all have access to them? Government policies must respond to the fourth industrial revolution. The East and West on tours, technological tours, to automate almost everything. The West is analyzing Mars as the next best destination for human habitation. Our aerial shots as filmmakers are now captured from the ground looking up, with our drones tasked to capture images, remote controls, which are traditionally shot from airplanes and helicopters. The world of robotics is moving fast, taking over the world and the work we humans are doing. How ready are we as an industry? How ready is the youth? Are we investing in technologies in schools, adapting our film youth curriculum, and making technology accessible for children and the youth to be digitally literate? We have enough inequalities as a developing economy. Digital inequality is an add-on to our triple challenges of poverty and unemployment. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mpho Tleng. I am founder and CEO of a youth-owned, youth-run, a youth empowering organization called All Africa Media Foundation. I do my part to contribute to the transformation of the South African creative industry as a young arts advocate. What are you doing? I call upon all of you to have young people at the top of your minds when you debate and make recommendations that will inform the 5-year implementation plan. That is one of the key outcomes of the industry. Bayete to the future leaders of this country.
Okay, before I introduce our next speaker, I would like to just go a little bit off script for 2 minutes. Minister, you are always talking about how we are Africa, and it was deliberate that we opened with the African Union National Anthem. In our midst, we've got our brother Luzoko here, who has put together a co-production between South Africa, Kenya, and DRC Congo. And our brother Balufu here, please stand up. He's from the DRC Congo, and he is going to be directing a story on Ngugi wa Thiong'o. And Ngugi wa Thiong'o was one of the shortlisted people to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. So thank you. And I would also like to special mention Leila. Leila, stand up. She is our youngest, smartest, amazing producers who produced Jamil Kubeka's film, and it was the South African film that we actually pushed for the Oscars. Please, Leila and Jamila, stand up. I'm getting so emotional. Nyombose, this is the talent that we have, and these are young people who are just shining and who are doing the most amazing things. At the back there, we can't see her. There's Shelley Berry, a very good friend of mine, passionate filmmaker, and she is now heading the film school at University of Johannesburg. So it will be cheaper than other film schools. And I myself, I'm actually going to go and do a master's in film in her department. So, I mean, these are all young people, people who are below the age of 35 or whatever, and they are just making us shine. And so, without further ado, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Eric Mieni. Eric Mieni is the director of Rapid Lion, the South African International Festival, which aims to be the premier marketing tool for South African films. I was just having a conversation with Eric yesterday, and I said to Eric, what we are missing is a bigger picture, where we have a film festival, A-list, you create a television, the way Sundance did it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Now we've got Sundance Channel with the films, so we just need to always think of the bigger picture. Thank you very much, Eric. We are running out of time, and my brother, please come, and time is not on our side.
Minister Natim Tetwa, Deputy Minister Sokyu, Director General Mkhize, and I mean, I'd like to go through all of you, but I can't. Thank you for letting me speak here. For the purposes of this presentation, I'd like you all to, just for 15 minutes, think of yourselves as black. This will be very difficult if you've never done it before, or if you've never been it before, but just try. And I think you'll understand it better. This paper came actually because Minister Mteto once said, I don't want to be a minister of festivals. What can we do? What's the 110 key thing we can do to try and impact the industry in the long term? So a few people came together and this was put together. And I'm going to try and give it to you in what I was allocated is 7 minutes. It took months to put together. It should take 2 hours. They said 2 minutes. I'm going to take 15. So bear with me. The question that this presentation tries to answer is, how can the South African government grow the local film industry by introducing, supporting, and growing black players without negatively detracting from the business process of long-standing existing larger white players? We'll start by identifying the problem, then analyze the broader context within which the film industry in general is located, and move to some critical concrete recommendations. Now, the problem with the South African film industry, funnily enough, is its stupendous success. You see, we punch way above our weight. We've won Berlinale, we've won the Oscar. Very few countries have done that, number one. Number two, we have some of the best film schools on the continent, some compared to some of the best in the world. Number three, between UIP and Ster-Kinekor, we probably have one of the best exhibition and distribution partnerships in the world. 22 million tickets sold every year. Now, that's a very successful film business. And because of that, it's difficult to see its stagnation. But its stagnation is built inside that because that was built under apartheid, and actually it serves the same people over and over again, which means it's very difficult for black players to come in. So if you want to grow this business, our view is that you need to grow black film players into it. Okay, that's the problem, and that's what we think, how we should look at it. Now, but in order to get a solution, we need to look at the ecosystem of the film business. And this is a sort of a secondary cause for all of you, because you probably know this, but I'll remind you it so you can see where we come in. Now, like all businesses, it has a unique value chain. Let's start there, education and training. You need to train new players who can sustain the business going forward. Production. Now, this is the part where South Africa thinks the business of film is located when it isn't. Production is where you invest. It is the money pit of the film business. It is where filmmakers sustain themselves, get salaries, and keep working. It is the investment part. And for some reason, we tend to think that's where we should concentrate our efforts. I would like to suggest that it isn't, although it is important because you have to produce something in order to go to market. But the production side is not the epitome of a business that can be sustained. The next part is marketing and distribution. So that's where people like us, Rapid Lounge, come in, trying to market, put a big red carpet, make the country know all the filmmakers when they come in for every year, then they can come and see their film. So that's marketing. Distribution companies do that with posters, merchandise, all of these things that we still don't do in this country. Most filmmakers spend nothing on distribution or get little on it and marketing, and we think these movies will go forward. Now, the final part that I want to talk about is the key part, and this is the film business's business heart, and that's exhibition. Because if you think carefully about it, what's the point of having great apple farmers with great apples at the end of the year that rot at the end because there's nowhere to sell them? We need exhibition because ticket sales is the heart of the movie business. Okay. Now, this is how I can illustrate this ecosystem at work. This is an extract from a defunct newspaper called The New Age. I liked it a lot, by the way. Two-time Oscar winner Hilary Swank has signed on for I Am Mother. The project is of note not only because it attracted an actress of Swank's caliber, but also because the screenplay made it onto last year's Blacklist, a selection of Hollywood's most liked unproduced film treatments, while director Gans Putore from Second Unit Direction on 2015 Simon Pegg's action comedy Kill Me 3 Times, right? If you look at that sentence, what we see is that a successful movie ecosystem does one, creates and sustains industry mechanisms to identify future film projects, the Blacklist, right? Produces some of the most interesting films in the world. I Am Mother, a movie about the first crop of humans raised by robots. Professor Shilizu would love that. And by the way, the producer of AI that he talked about is coming to Rapid Lounge this year, Jan Hallen. He'll be giving 3 master classes. If you really want to check out, how these people work, you should come. It uses its movie sets to train future film practitioners. Director Putore trained on the set of Kill Me 3 Times. It grows movie stars through these films to sell more films. Hilary Swank was once an unknown who was groomed and grew to be an Oscar winner. Nurtures award ceremonies like the Oscars to market its films. Now, what is not in that ecosystem, which is there, though, are the following. It supports film festivals like the Ann Arbor Film Festival, which identify Oscar-worthy films and great film practitioners of the future to sustain the business. And finally, and most importantly, it has big, efficient exhibition companies like cinema chain AMC Entertainment Incorporated, which exhibits films throughout America. All these elements work in tandem to give a Hollywood film the greatest chance of success in the domestic market. You must understand, everything international in America or Nollywood or Bollywood is secondary. They win the domestic market first. Here we make films just run straight to the festival outside. Now, recommended interventions for the Department of Arts and Culture, the South African government. The Department of Arts and Culture, the government, we'd say, must commit to creating, nurturing, and growing a parallel South African film industry ecosystem that is dedicated to the success of Black South African film practitioners, as opposed to supporting one or other part thereof, e.g. production. Or worse, trying to partner Black film businesses with their counterparts, white counterparts, through such self-defeating systems as Black economic empowerment. Whose idea was that? We therefore recommend the following. 1, establish or give support to existing film schools that train future Black film practitioners at very low or no cost. This is important. They exist. Identify them, support them, because they exist. I don't want to name names here because then it means you're leaving someone, but they exist. Fund the establishment of Black-owned and run production facility companies. If they don't exist, find people who can make them, gear companies, post-production facilities, etc. Find them, fund them, and make them carry on. Fund and sustain local Black-owned and run film production houses. And I mean film here because we constantly confuse it with television, constantly mix them together, and eventually television takes over all the time. This is a film summit. Film production companies and make them carry on. Establish or support an existing distribution and exhibition partnership and mandate it to prioritize Black-produced films. Critical, okay? Create or fund an existing Black-managed and owned film festival with a highly award ceremony or award that you can use to market these films, okay? 6, facilitate, fund the building of a new chain of cinemas that are mandated to prioritize films by Black South African film practitioners located in proximity of the Black film lover with an affordable pricing model for that Black market. Now, I said to you, this is the heart of the film business. And there are young people who've been working for over 9 years to develop this. You need to fund them and make them happen. Conclusion. In order to grow the South African film industry, The South African government must, in the main, identify all key areas of the movie-making value chain. It must then identify black companies that are already working well in each of these component areas of that value chain. It must fund these entities so that they are fully geared to do their part well. These entities must then be forced to work together. This is critical. You hire from each other. This is an awesome thing. I so love that we are not in the Sandton Convention Center. All this must be done with the understanding that an exhibition chain of cinemas outside of the existing ones is the key component of this value chain, more important than all the other components put together. We need a place where we sell our movies to our people. Finally, Minister Mthethwa, honestly, congratulations to you and the team at the department for the cleanup operation at the various art institutions, including the NFVF, the Market Theatre Foundation, you name it. When I read that, I was absolutely inspired. Please note that what the South African film industry is now anxiously waiting for in order to move forward with vigor is for you to take this broom that has worked so well externally and use it in-house. Without that, nothing that this film summit comes up with will amount to anything. Please read as much as you can, if you haven't, inside the department of all its internal corruption too. Thus open the way for the film industry to really prosper. Thank you so much for listening.
Only our brother Eric could invigorate us. Before I introduce our next speaker, on the issue of Africa, Firdaus, I'd like you to stand up because Firdaus was nominated as the director of the Zanzibar Film Festival. And that's important because it's actually showing how we are making a footprint on the African continent. And my mentor and my brother Ramadan, he isn't going to stand up. I'm not going to ask him to stand up. But what's important to mention is that Ramadan has been working on a very important film that actually looks at the history of all liberation struggles on the African continent. And the film actually is one of the films that have been selected in competition for SPACO. And as you know, that South Africa is a country, we were the last to attain our independence. And we stood on the shoulders of giants, of those people who came before us, those countries that made immense sacrifices for South Africa to be where it is today. So Ramadan, we thank you for the vision for creating a film of that nature. Without ado, just a background of what we are talking about in terms of the film and creative industries. I'm not sure if everyone knows that in 2016 until 2017, the last financial year, the creative industry was the third largest earner. And it actually made more money than tourism. Tourism was actually the fourth earner. So it's very, very important for us to actually understand the figures. And in understanding the figures, we are looking at how billions contribute to the GDP of this country just from the creative industries. And this actually creates more than 20,000 jobs. But before we go to our plenary sessions, with all that money, the billions, where are black people in that value chain? That's very, very, very important for us to interrogate because at the end of the day, it's really, really about dollars and cents. And it's important for black people to be part of that value chain. Because if black people are not part of that value chain, then we actually haven't done anything in terms of transforming this industry. The following speakers represent the true nature of the industry that we need to interrogate, challenge, the reality that for years the primary investor in this industry has been government. That needs to change. Private investors have to come on board because there is money. Research has established that. So private investors have to come. Net worth, high net worth individuals need to be on board. And before I do, please help me welcome to the stage Mr. Anand Singh. You don't need any introduction, but Mr. Anand Singh is the most successful producer in this country, and I think that he probably would give us light and give us pearls of wisdom in terms of interrogating and understanding this thing called money and the film industry. Please, Mr. Singh.
Thank you very much, program directors. Minister, Deputy Minister, MEC, it's indeed a privilege to be here. It's an exciting day today that for the next 2 days we're deliberating the film industry. This was an industry that really was an orphan industry. And it's really important that we have such a big group of individuals, young filmmakers especially, because if I am one of the most prolific, I want to see all of you as the new and the future filmmakers of today and tomorrow. So we salute you. And it's your passion and your love that's going to make you become that. And this is an industry of rejection. As the Vice Chancellor said, he was a failed artist. There's no such thing as a failed artist. We are all failed artists. I remember the rejection, and I will talk a bit about that. But you are an artist, and you will always be an artist. So rustle up that passion and keep going. So just a few additional comments. Black Panther was actually, part of it was shot here. I think it was somewhere near Bloemfontein. Wakanda's Village was shot there. But that's a movie that we could have made in South Africa. It's grossed over almost $2 billion. And imagine the impact. We talk about GDP contribution of 12.5 billion rand, but one movie has done $2 billion. So that knock-on effect, if we find something like that, and one of you will find it, I have no doubt about it, and you just have to persevere. And also, Deputy Minister, coming back to the industry, welcome to our industry, because this industry knows no time. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, we work 24 hours, and that's the only way it is, because you have to do it, you know, when the opportunity arises. So please keep going on that path. Anyway, you know, as we navigate through the next 48 hours, I think we've heard a lot, and I think Eric alluded to the narrative of our industry and very concisely interpreted the shortcomings. But I thought it would be useful to give you a bit of background on how and where this industry was when I started, because especially for the young filmmakers here, I think that we face they're facing the same rejection. In my day, it was an industry reserved for white people. Everything, cinemas were segregated. The kind of films that would be made, there was a censorship law that only had films that could be watched by white people. I actually have a criminal record for showing the James Bond film Live and Let Die to an audience of color. So that's how crazy the business was in those days. And when Madiba and the ANC made a call from prison and from exile to speak out against apartheid, I was passionate about film. And I wanted to go to film school, and the only film school was for white people, so I couldn't go to film school. I studied engineering, but of course that was because I was forced to do that. I used to work for R1 a day rewinding film. We had no television, and I used to rewind films, and that was where I started. And when the call came to speak out against apartheid, I decided, well, what can I do? And, you know, there was no ANC in South Africa. There was, you know, I just thought, okay, I got to make a movie. So at that time, Darryl Root, who we collaborated with on several films, and I sat together, and he said, why don't we make this story? It was called Place of Weeping, and Sina Mshlope was a friend, and this is now almost, I think, 30 years ago, or maybe more. And we said, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. And again, rejection was the order of the day. No film company, the film lab, the technology companies, nobody would give me credit. Any white person would get credit no matter who you were. And that was it. But you wanted to prove a point. And that's the journey that we all go through. And I think it's so important to continue fighting. There was an incentive in those days in cinema for exhibition, and it was only for Afrikaans films. And it was quite fascinating that everything was legislated to support the apartheid government. You know, so we made Place of Weeping. We did it on the run from the police. The police pulled me over, took me over to whatever that Point Road police station in Durban was, harassed me a bit. We took the negative out of the country, but we were editing just down the road in Yeoville. We finished the film and got it released overseas first because they wouldn't play it here. And then we went on to making another film called The Stick, which was banned in South Africa completely. And again, you know, we were sort of all young people learning about this business. And I got it to play in the Moscow Film Festival. This was 1984, 85, which was a fascinating experience. And I felt, well, we have to tell South African stories because it's such a rich canvas. And over the years, I've continued to try and do that. And then in the mid-80s, we began with Sarafina. And by the time Madiba got released, the film was finished. And that, I think, brings most of you up to date to where we were in our film industry at that time. I think you've heard a lot about the potential of our industry. I think there's a great pool of talent. Many of you here, whether it's creative, technical, management, and then you add items like locations, studios, weather, our exchange rate, the incentives, even though our incentives are not as competitive as other countries in the world, international filmmakers love to work here because it gives them something quite exotic. And I think those are attributes that we have and we can continue to grow. I think when we talk about GDP and that this industry is bigger than the tourism industry, you look at the UK, its biggest export is from the creative community. And we certainly have that potential. And I think we just have to continue on that path and keep growing it. I think the Department of Arts and Culture, which never existed pre-1994, is a real important step towards where we are heading. We see the young talents, and we heard about Leila and Jamil and their work, and this is supported by the NFVF. And if the president is here later, we're going to tell him that he needs to fund more towards the NFVF because that work of young emerging filmmakers, which Eric talked about, is so important. So thank you for what you do in that avenue. But again, that promotion and marketing of those films are what's crucial, not only in South Africa, but around the world. Because you look at films today and you have this week, or in the next few weeks, the Oscars and all the awards race that's going on. And what is the #1 film on every one of those lists that's winning Best Picture, Best Director? It's a black and white, Spanish language, Mexican film called Roma. Now, of course, it's Alfonso Cuarón, and he's done many Hollywood films, but it just tells us that we, sitting in South Africa or anywhere on the continent, have the potential to be in that game. And today, when I joined as an Academy member almost 30 years ago, there were probably 2 African countries that were Academy members. Today, I think there are about 15 or 18, and that must continue to grow. But that's where the world is going. So I really feel that we have amazing potential to continue. I think one of the issues is theatrical and ambivalence by South African audiences to watch South African films. And I think that's an area that needs a lot of attention. And I think Eric's ideas, again, towards that is very important because, we've been battling to navigate that. It is growing, but the more resources, the more creativity we put into that, the better. We talk about television, and broadcasters are very delinquent in this country. When you look at comparatives in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, in Canada, if a Canadian makes a Canadian film, the broadcaster has to play it, and he has to buy it. Thank you. Here you'd be lucky to even get the door open at a broadcaster. And even if it's pay TV, if it's satellite, all these networks, I've had first-hand experience where I could sell my movie via a film studio in Hollywood for more money than they would pay me here. And that's shocking. It's anti-competitive. It's all the things that you all know, but they're getting away with it. So that's really not right. I think when we look around the world, you look at Bollywood. Bollywood is a phenomenal machine. And as the years have progressed, they've grown that business. Today, you'll find Bollywood films doing $30, $40 million in the United States, in the UK, Germany, in movie theaters. And we could be in that space. It takes a lot of hard work, but creativity knows no boundary. People want to watch films, they want to see fresh ideas, and you guys can do that. I think in the areas of development, there's a lot of work to be done. Again, these have been alluded to. Animation and visual effects are really important areas, and I think there are young kids in the country that are beginning to play in this territory and doing very creative work. I think film training and film schools have been talked about. There's some areas that I'm working on with a film school in LA to do some partnerships, and likewise do we do film training at Cape Town Film Studios and on all our shows. It's great to be here at Skyring Studios. Studios are an anchor for production. As some of you or most of you may know, I'm a partner in Cape Town Film Studios. That has grown very nicely over the years. We've continued to build new sound stages, and I think over the period that it's been in existence, there have been over 50,000 jobs created at the studio. And that's quite a remarkable achievement. I think that when you look at the continued development, where I'm looking to build a film studio in Durban, which is going to be a 7.5 billion Rand development. And again, I feel that we have to be pushing the boundaries. And the idea with Durban is to have it be a creative hub, not only film, but bring all the creative communities together, music, artists, potters, because they bounce off each other. And I think KZN has a very powerful, creative community and base. So that's the idea with the Durban Film Studios. And I'm almost done. And then last but not least, where are we going in 5 years' time? So here we talk about a 12.5 billion rand contribution to GDP. I think that probably 30 to 40 billion is not impossible. I think what this industry has is the ability to promote where the President's initiative of Invest South Africa and his 1 billion rand initiative towards nation building. And on this panel in front of me, it says, we're laying the foundation for greatness. And I think that is achievable. But I think it's a lot of hard work, and we are all here because we believe in it. And I wish you continued success on your deliberations. And we're going to play a 3-minute video, which will give you we're in the film business, so we have to bring you into the industry, looking back. So enjoy the video. Thanks. Can we get some volume, please? Can you go back? Okay, this happens in film business. It's about it's talk of failure.
Located in Durban, on the east coast of South Africa, is Videovision Entertainment. Over the years, the company's slate of productions have included some of the most unique and profound films to be made on the African continent.
Importantly, my father entrusted Anand Singh with the depiction of his life story on film. Anand Singh is also like a family friend. We've known him for many years, even before my father came back from prison.
Videovision's diversified portfolio of investments include a significant shareholding in Cape Town Film Studios, the first ever custom-built film studios in Africa, and currently in development is Durban Film City on the iconic Natal Command site on the city's beachfront. Bringing the glitz, glamour and economic benefits of the film industry to Durban, the development will be anchored by eThekwini Film Studios.
You see, nxa nimbona uhlelela uyenza imali, ningacabange ukuthi he didn't come from somewhere. He came from somewhere where it was even harder for people of his kind to be where he is today. It's actually easier for us now. So, thank you very much. Yes, so, before we, Anand, he started earning 1 rand a day. So it's possible. And now we even have a platform where Abo Leila, she should now actually in future be producing a film for 100 million. It shouldn't even be an issue for someone like that to do that. So I think that Wakanda Part 2 is coming. It's coming. It's coming to South Africa. We want that money. So thank you very much, Mr. Singh. I would also like to make special announcements. Thank yous. We would like to welcome and acknowledge Chief Dumizweni Mthembu. Chief, please, Mandle Zulu. Mandle Zulu. Sifuna ukubulisa. AmaXhosa ate Mandle Zulu when we address a chief, the bearer of the skies. Thank you very much. And he is from Qumbu. That's where, ne? Qumbu, yes. Thank you very much. And we would also like to acknowledge one of our institutional memories, dinosaurs, the chairperson of the NFVF, Ntate Phil Molefe. Please stand up. You see, Ntate Phil Molefe has been in the film industry before you people were born, ne? So he knows a lot. He was at the SABC, you know, he's part of the fabric of this film industry. And we would also like to acknowledge the HOD, Gauteng Sports, Arts and Culture. Monica, I love Monica. Why did you leave the Department of Arts and Culture? Where are you? Monica, I love Monica. We would like to say thank you so much for coming. She is now with Gauteng Sports, Arts and Culture. And the other person we would also like to acknowledge from the Department of Communications is Colin Mashile. Where are you, my brother? Okay, I was asked to acknowledge him. He's floating somewhere. The other person I'd really like to mention who's not part of the program is Ntate Glenn Masokwane. Glenn has been an arts practitioner from the 70s when he was in exile. They started collectives of black people making films and all of that, and then he went to the Department of Arts and Culture. Now he's with IBSC, and is an invaluable resource. So for young people who really want to understand where people have come from, I think that you need to seek out Bra Glenn Masokwane. Without further ado, we have representatives of certain organizations who made a pledge to support the film industry. And we would like them to come up to tell us how much money, how they are going to do it. And, but we are running out of time. So a minute, please, each. Can we please have Mr. Shadrack Bokhapa up here from the NFVF, Mr. Deepak Chiba, IDC, Mnet representative, Renilwe Sema, and Yolanda Oliphant from the NEF. Please, can you come up and just say a few words in terms of how you see your organizations participating in the growth of the film industry? From the NFVF. Sorry.
Good morning, everybody. There is a short video clip that is supposed to be on at this point in time. Could you please play it?
The National Film and Video Foundation is an agency of the Department of Arts and Culture that was created with the sole purpose to ignite stories of the South African film industry. It's a story about nurturing uniquely South African narratives through the funding of the development, production, marketing and distribution of films, festival hosting, market and festivals attendance, as well as the training and development of aspiring filmmakers. Our story is about igniting your stories. and we will continue to do so for as long as South Africans have stories to tell. In the past financial year, our story moved in leaps and bounds as we pursued transformation and development across all spheres of the industry. Our training department's achievements include 127 bursaries awarded to deserving students. Through our partnership with MICT CETA, 120 interns placed, 3 training companies funded, 60 filmmakers participated in the SEDIBA program, 12 film students participated in the mentorship program. Through our mentorship program, 2 filmmakers had an opportunity to work on a BET production in Toronto. 621 learners were reached through the school's program. The production and development of content is key to our business. In the previous financial year, 81 projects were funded in development, 48 in production, 1 slate funded for female filmmakers, youth filmmakers. The NFVF commissioned 4 special projects, 1 to commemorate Nelson Mandela's centenary, 2 towards the advancement of our culture and heritage, and 1 co-production incentive with the Canada Media Fund. Our efforts to create sustainable companies continues through the slate project that we fund, such as the 3 fiction slates, 1 animation and 1 documentary slate. For co-productions, 8 projects were certified, 4 for advanced ruling and 4 for final ruling. We hosted 2 co-production forums in partnership with the Department of Trade and Industry and the South African Consulate in Canada. The Marketing and Distribution Report for 2017-2018 financial year is noteworthy with the following achievements. 12 festival grants awarded to national festivals covering 8 of our 9 provinces. 13 festival activations. 99 filmmakers funded to attend local and international markets and film festivals. 3 public screenings and the We Are Africa Film Festival. 7 awareness and industry events hosted. Activated at 8 international festivals for global positioning. Attended 4 strategic markets to promote proudly South African content. 4 brand activations and 4 communications campaigns implemented per quarter. These resulted in an overall increase in applications. 10 marketing and distribution grants awarded. 16 stakeholder engagements hosted during the financial year. The NFVF launched its VOD platform, samb.net, and all South African filmmakers are encouraged to submit their content on the platform. The South African Film and Television Awards, SAFTA's, brand continues to grow, and this is evident in the 30% increase in viewership. Policy and research. 5 research publications published, 4 quarterly monitoring reports produced, and 2 policy and legislative submissions with recommendations submitted. The 2017-2018 year saw much growth in our film industry. We will continue to play a leading role in addressing the needs of our stakeholders and the broader film community. Our focus towards the growth of youth and women in the industry has yielded positive results through partnerships with various provinces, strategic entities, and community interventions. The National Film and Video Foundation remains committed to fueling the industry. We congratulate all the South Africans who have received both local and international accolades. We assure the industry that we will continually adhere to our duty of implementing strategic priorities with integrity, working towards improving the quality of life for every South African, while promoting equality, all through the power of the visual medium.
Minister of Arts and Culture, Deputy Minister, DG, the Chair of the NFVF, Mr. Mlefe, ladies and gentlemen, our commitment this morning is as follows.
The National Film...
That was not it. We have 4 programs at the NFVF. The first one I would like to start with, I think Mr. Mieni emphasized the need for training and development this morning and supporting film schools. The training and development at NFVF, we commit 10.3 million rands in the next financial year. For marketing and distribution, it will be 10.5 million rand. For production and development, the commitment is 47.8 million rand. And then lastly, research, R&D, innovation. There we commit 3 million rands. So in total, it's just over 72 million rands. Thank you.
This is too little. May we all pledge to write a chain letter to the minister and to the president of the country that we are the third largest earner in the larger scheme of things in this country. Tourism gets much more money than this. Kanjan. So I think that Lebone is the most efficient person I know. He can start that letter, send to everyone. We send to the minister, Natim Tetwa, and minister, we are asking you, commanding you as the captain of the ship to take that to the president of the country. It's too little. The money is too little. So Nyombose, you've got a big job on your hands. But we know that actually you agree with us. And the other person I didn't mention who is going to come and speak last is Usisi Malebo. She's one of my favorite people, and she is from the DTI. So she's one of the people who's actually going to speak last. Without further ado, we would like to invite Mr. Deepak Chiba from the IDC.
I'm not Mr. Deepak, relax. But we would just like to acknowledge and request Minister of Small Business to please come forth, and that we are very blessed to have two ministers in one room. Minister Zulu, please, Cela Uzenga Pambili and Ndabezit.
Minister Zulu, I first met you when you were at the legislature. Minister Zulu, please come up. Yes, say a few words. Unemali kaloku. But Mina, I remember you when you were at the legislature.
That's so many years
It doesn't
ago.
matter, but I saw a shining star. I was young and I was there and I saw you there. Please say a few words.
Okay. Oh gosh, on the spot. Yeah. No, but thank you very much. I think that as a Department of Small Business Development, firstly, to be here in this Sky Rink. I came here when it was still under construction. I came here when it was completed. I came here because I was told something great is happening at the Carlton Center, and I wanted to see it for myself. I went to a few ministers to tell them that there's something called the Sky Rink, and I told the people here that way back in the 90s, when this place used to have the skating rink, we used to live in Hillbrow. And we used to bring the children here to skate. Yeah, that's many, many years ago. My son is 27 years old now. But I used to bring him here, and I was very excited by the fact that some people decided to keep this place alive. But not only to keep it alive, but to get something happening that will give a platform. And the reason why I went back to speak to many of the ministers to say they have to come here is because when I saw this place, I said to myself, I hope it doesn't turn into a white elephant, where they've put so much money into it, they've worked so hard to get it. It's not easy to have such top-of-the-range studio and maintain it and keep it. It means both government, private sector, and those that are doing film, and those that are doing advertising, and those that are doing everything must now bring the work here so that this place can be sustained. Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister, for for having heard our cry and saying, let it happen. I remember that it was also Minister Mokonyane that I asked to come here, and she did come to see the place. So I hope that all of us who are here are not only just looking for support from government, but we need to think outside the box and say, how do we make it happen? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Zulu. We are really running out of time, so we are not going to have a tea break. Please bear with us. And the speakers who are coming up, please keep your presentations short and tight. We would like to invite Mr. Deepak Chiba from the IDC to say a few words.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, MEC and DG, thank you for allowing me to do a presentation on behalf of IDC today. Quickly, my name is Deepak Chiba. I'm a Senior Account Manager within the IDC. The IDC, specifically where I belong, is the Media and Audiovisual Business Unit. We are committed to not only the film industry, but the full value chain. And that includes facilities like SkyRink, which we are funder of, as well as Cape Town Film Studios, which we have been participating in. So we believe in everything that was said by Eric and as well as Anand with regards to the full value chain in the media industry. Our targets for the financial year ending in March 2019, which will then be increased, is 325 million rand for film funding, film and the media chain funding. This includes 200 million for black industrialists, 80 million for women, 90 million for youth. And these are our key priority areas. We have to focus on this. We have a target of around 600 permanent jobs, which translates roughly into about 4,000 jobs in the industry. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chiba. Ms. Yolanda Oliphant, can you come up? She is from the NEF.
Good morning. I'm Yolanda from the NEF. I'm an investment associate at Umnoto. So we have a partnership with the Department of Arts and Culture where we have a venture capital fund. To date, we have done about 175 million to date to 31 March 2019. We've got about 175 million that we still need to disperse into the industry. And that also includes, like IDC, the full value chain. So it's not very limited to just film production. It's also equipment and other sectors within the arts and industry. So i.e. anybody in theater and so forth are also welcome to come to the NEF for funding. Thank you.
How much for the youth, Ms. Oliphant? How much? Okay, but they can come to you. Okay, fantastic. And Mnet, we've got a representative from Mnet, Renilwe Sema. Before you speak, producers are not happy with the Mzansi budgets. They are insulting. They end up having to use students to do sound and camera work. You actually can't produce decent work with those budgets, yet Mnet is making a lot of money from us. They've had a monopoly of money. We all have DSTVs and everything, and it's unacceptable what you are offering to producers to create work and to participate and to stay working in this film industry. And everybody has that sentiment. And I think that it was important for me to say that. However, thank you very much. And we love you being here.
Good morning, everybody. I'm looking forward to engaging on those budgets, but we pride ourselves in being Africa's leading storyteller. Last year, in 2018, we spent over 2.5 billion in content across all our platforms. And that's film that's across licensing films, that's television, soapies, telenovelas, reality shows, etc. Our goal for this year is to increase our investment in local production. And I look forward to discussing with you guys. I know a lot of these faces here. I wish they'd come personally to me and told me about their challenges. But I'm here, we can chat, we can talk. You can all come to me, we can all discuss openly. I think the guys that I work with know that the challenges that we have with the budgets, and we help where we can help. We have great partnerships in the industry with a lot of producers, with a lot of guys in who also get funding via the NEVF and DTI. So we love to engage. This year, the 2.5 billion that's broken up is that we're going to spend the bulk of that in South Africa producing all your favorite shows. And we are looking to growing our number of black producers. We did a lot of work last year producing our biggest reality shows and some of our biggest telenovelas and dramas, and we're going to continue that this year. Thank you very much, guys.
One last thing, my brother, the issue of copyright. Mnet. You know, there's a Nigerian saying which says, if you are going to eat a frog, you must eat a frog with eggs in it. So if broadcasters are going to take all copyright, then the budgets need to be really high. There has to be a trade-off. You don't want to give us copyright, give us bigger budgets. But also it's a challenge to South African producers who are taking the work where we are being paid peanuts because we provide the content. So if we give you content and if we refuse to give you content, you will have nothing to show. So it's a win-win. No one is doing anybody a favor. We need to create a win-win platform. And we love you, my brother. Ne?
I'm going to be very quick. So the issue of IP, we support producers getting a share of the IP. There's certain models that we have in the business that allow producers to retain IP. And I think that when people speak about what Mnet is doing, you have to look at the context of the whole business. Currently within production, with co-productions, that we partner with producers from around the world, and producers are retaining IP on those. So I think that we have to be very clear around what we are doing as a business, and we support everything. Any initiative that makes the industry live is what we support.
Okay, thank you very much. Our last speaker is one of my favorite girls in the industry, Miss Malebo, who has worked tirelessly for the transformation of people in the film industry. And she is with the DTI, and they are doing amazing work. Please, please, please welcome Sisi Malebo.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. I think from the DTI, our engagement in the sector is beyond money. I'll talk about money last. I'll talk about some of the key partnerships that we're pledging to make this sector work as well as it needs to work, because that's important. The first thing that we are pledging, one of the things that we've already delivered on, is that we are taking producers to markets outside of South Africa to expose you to international talent and to make sure that you are also linked in those global value chains. Some of you here would have been with us when we were in LA, where we started talking to all the major studios. So that is the one that we are now committing ourselves to, that we will walk the journey with you to get the markets and to link you in global value chains. Then the second thing that I would just like to mention from the DTI is part of what we have included in the incentive. Most of you would have known that we launched a new incentive not so long ago. The most important difference in that incentive, particularly for black producers, is that now we are going to support you to buy equipment. So, and that is a very, very important difference. And I would like to thank the IBFC for that, actually. I want to acknowledge that it was industry that raised this thing. And because of they raised it, we found a way to include it in our guidelines. And thank you for engaging us on that. And then the other thing that we want to walk the journey with you on, which is something that people have been mentioning in industry, is the role of women in industry and how women are treated in industry. You will not receive government support if women are treated in the way that the Me Too movement is saying women are treated in this industry. We will find ways and means to withdraw that support from you. And we think that is a sustainable way of growing industry. Now, the other difference in the new incentive is that we are saying now, for all those overseas productions that shoot here, that are also eligible for support because they bring export revenue into South Africa, we're not going to support them if they are not including black suppliers in their value chain. And that is what we told Hollywood in its entirety. And we've got most of your buy-in on that. We know there are other black people who are fighting that change. But we hope that through some of the summits, we will take everybody along. Then I'm coming to the money. In terms of the money, it's 370 million. And we've got a standing commitment with IBFC. They are bringing 100 productions this year. We will hold them to account. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now that you've heard about the commitments, you've heard about the millions, I hope you are writing down and adding them so that you know this summit, what was its value, financial value, the underpinnings of that which makes the machinery run. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been waiting in anticipation to get the message and the address by our minister, the Minister of Arts and Culture, Minister Nathi Mthethwa. And I think the time is ripe. We're ready. We've had the pledges. And we would now have an honor to ask our Minister Nathi Mthethwa to come and address us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks, DG. When you were complaining about the acronyms in the industry, I was saying to myself, look who's talking. DG, DM, DP, the list goes on. The reference team who put all this thing together, we were told that they were going to organize this thing and it's going to be successful, so they said. And they said we'll have key representatives of the industry, about 100 people. I said, fine. I think the DG and the CFO won't mind that financially. And we were supposed to meet last year, 2018. Tim came back and said, no, we're not there yet, Minister. We're still fine-tuning the preparation. I said, no, it's okay. They said, but we also want to tell you that the number we agreed on has doubled. It's 100% what we agreed on. So it's 200 and something. I said, okay, as long as you don't say it's me who gave you a go-ahead. The DG and the CFO of the department, you must talk to them. Then there was a lull. I didn't hear a thing after that. Only yesterday, the DG says, Minister, we think that we are around 400. I said, no, it's okay. But what it meant to me is that there is a need of an engagement like this, not a once-off. I think the young lioness there who raised the point about consistency, I think that annually it would be important that we get together, Chairperson Babu Mlifi, we get together like this and map the way forward, and also take stock of what would have been agreed on, pledges and everything, which have been done here. But the program directors, this lady, what's her name again? He's a bit of a bully, but it's fine. Xoliswa, thank you very much as the program director. We couldn't have chosen a better person. So, ladies and gentlemen, I got a note before I came here, and this note was sent, and the person who sent it didn't unmask his or her identity. But it was more like a speech when I read. It says, ladies and gentlemen, this majestic facility where our event is held today for the next 2 days is 100% owned, is 100% black owned and managed. For this, I'm pleased to acknowledge the role of the National National Empowerment Fund, the NEF, which approved 40 million rands towards the funding of the Skyring Studios, which today ranks as one of the biggest and most sophisticated production studios in the country. The NEF co-funded this facility with the IDC and with unique developmental support from Transnet. This truly is a wonderful example of government's commitment to supporting the rise of black industrialists across the economic spectrum. I'm still going to ask the Deputy Minister to help me to use the previous experience to locate where this note comes from. But one of the things which we emphasize, which has to go through, is partnerships. Partnerships, partnerships, and more partnerships. If you take what the acting CEO of NFVF said they will contribute, which you rejected outrightly, and take all others, in a true partnership and true rationalizing what we have, not working in silos, I think we can get somewhere out of that. Our Deputy Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister M.M. Sotyu, the panelists, the professor has left already, Professor Marwala, Ms. Malope, Ms. Tlantleng, Ms. Kashe Katia, Mr. Singh, Mr. Bakupa Kainda, am I pronouncing it correctly? Kanyinda. Mr. Siswart, Mr. Imien, who has left also, film practitioners here present, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I extend my warmest greetings to all of you present here in this summit. And in this summit, there are many people who have not acknowledged, including those who have been funding this industry. And amongst us also we have Miss United Nations, who is a South African from Gauteng province, one of the districts. Welcome. Thank you. We have gathered here for the next 2 days to answer the fundamental question of what will be the contribution of the creative and cultural industry, particularly the film sector, in developing in developing the South African story, and thus contributing to the efforts of nation building and social cohesion. This is one singular, most important story of South Africa, that after the fall of apartheid in 1994, the story which should be characterizing South Africa out there in the world should be the story about how are we forging this path of building a nation, because there was no nation to talk about before 1994. All of us were fragmented into our small tribal ethnic groups, be they kunendawo yamaXhosa, Afrikaners, Bapedi, and so on and so forth. Talking about nation building was never going to be an easy task. And this is the task which we are faced with today. And the summit has been themed very well, transformation and innovation in the South African film, audio, visual industry, and the fourth industrial revolution. Are we geared for the change? I think Professor Marwala was able to take us through the journey of the reality which is with us already, which we should continue to prepare and plan for, so that we don't get left behind for another 60 years. As everyone present here in this gathering would know, that ours is a nascent democracy, and whatever we do today will determine the kind of future we are building. The film sector, as the integral part of our society, was heavily affected by the gross historical injustice meted out against women and black population in general of this native land. Effects of this practice, which are still being felt to this hour. The summit takes place against the backdrop of a story of a South African film and television industry built by a people that have overcome conquest and conflict, characterized by resistance and resilience to adversity against all odds. It is the story of redefining and charting a new course wrapped in our unity in diversity that resembles the multifaceted nature of our nation, our country, and our Africanness. It is a story of tolerance and appreciation of our differences and uniquenesses. The historical realities underpinning the development of this sector places an emphasis on the creatives themselves and those who control the means of production to ensure that this industry plays its part in fostering nation building and social cohesion, pride in national identity, and participation of those who have been historically excluded from the entire value chain. What is our national identity today? In the past, you'll respond to this question almost immediately, that our national identity and what we came to be known of is that we were the children of apartheid. What is our national identity today? In South Africa today, you experience racism without racists. It's a phenomenon where everybody would punctuate whatever he says or she says that I'm not racist, including the guy who was in the Zondo Commission somewhere. I'm not racist, and then continue saying something. So what is or what should be our identity today? And the creatives would be best positioned to respond to this question. As we gather today, we must not forget the long journey that has led to this point. We must not forget that the majority of our people have historically been excluded in the critical processes and tasks assigned across the value chain in the development of this sector. More importantly, young people, women, and people with disabilities. Not only have young people, people with disability, and women been historically excluded in the industry's value chain, they have also been on the receiving end when it comes to the distribution of the available resources for their creative ventures and ideas, let alone ownership of the value chain. The governing party last year organized a meeting of the creatives, and there were a lot of discussions as we envisaged on this one. And we said, let it not be a talk shop. But one of the things which came out of that, when it was his time to respond, the president, he then informed the gathering that one of the problem and sector is this sector. That the person who's appointed to be at the helm of this sector always talk about this thing, the thing people were pledging on here. And you know, I was happy that as we go on, as government, we're starting to realize the powerful and the potency of this space. I shared with the president that I will continue. Thanks for that, but I will continue because, like the deputy minister, when I was redeployed from the police, I got our entities, met with them, and NFVF is one of them. And I was asking, so how much do we give artists? They gave me very big sum, 100 million rands. I said, oh, is that so? Yeah. Okay, no, that's fine. I was not sure what was fine, but I said, it's fine. Then one film producer came to see me and said, no, Minister, we want funding. We having a film here, so we want funding from you. I said, no, you know, I was elated to share good news with him. Came just 2 weeks after I've met our entity. No, you go to NFVF. And he said to me, NFVF? I said, yes, oh, those ones. And he said to me, so how much does NFVF have? No, it's a lot of money, guys. I'm not going to talk. And he said, no, let me explain to you, Minister, as if I'm explaining to a 4-year-old about the industry. This is hardly a month I'm in office. Said to me, you know, the film I want to shoot will cost more than 100 million rands. He just mentioned that figure. I said, one. He said to me, you heard me, Minister. So, let me tell you about NFVF. I'm going to be getting, if I'm lucky, 2 million rands. And one thing you need to do as you get into this space, you must fight for us on this thing. Because I don't want to bother you. I won't come back to you again. Because you are not going to help me. That broke my heart, you see, because I've just arrived and I thought that we have something. So when I raise with my colleagues the issue of investing in the sector. It is because, one, we know that the project of nation building in this country will succeed if this industry succeeds. It is because the unlocking of economic potential is so huge in the industry. People talk Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood. In fact, the recent study is pointing to us that Rwanda is growing very fast with its Hollywood. So, our partnerships, which you all know, with BRICS, those countries, each and every one of them, know exactly what is their national interest. They have, you go to China, you'll get it. They know. And they know why they are in this partnership. And we had to think, what is it that is going to be our niche as South Africa? And after looking particularly in the cultural and creative industries, we then came to the conclusion, which I believe it's a correct conclusion, that our national interest is going to be in the film industry. Therefore, we expect not only arts and culture, not only trade and industry or economic development, but the entirety of government to appreciate that, so that as we have identified it, we then follow it up with proper investment, not the peanuts which arts and culture as a whole has. I don't forget that very first experience. Now, that's the kind of situation and that's the kind of pestering we are prepared to do until the end. Because in this partnership, BRICS partnership, we've drilled down to numbers and we said, if we can have access, market access of those countries, we'll go a long way as South African industry. But charity begins at home. Charity begins at home because where they are talking Nollywood, we are talking Bollywood, there's one thread that runs through. People, wherever they are, they want to see themselves. You are not going to see a successful Bollywood with a Xoliswa there. You know Xoliswa. So that's one thing which would complement what we've seen as a potential for further growth for us. I crunch numbers there at about 160 million people in Russia. And we said if we can have an audio-visual treaty with Russia and access to, and by the way, people around the globe do want to hear the story of South Africa today. The story of this country and how it continues to integrate with the rest of the continent. And I continued with my arithmetic with Brazil with 210 million people. I said, wow, this is something else. We had to sign that audiovisual treaty last year with Brazil. And in our mind is the access, this market access to our people. I don't want to talk about China and India. If you can get one of them and have that platform just one of them, our industry will grow even bigger. Now, I've always wondered, and I've been following up, why are South Africans so much glued into the story from Nollywood? Everybody knows those short guys. You think they are kids, but people have been consistently following. The growth of Nollywood is not only in Nigeria, it's throughout the continent. And people love the story. And I was told by one very intelligent South African who went and, to Nigeria to advise some of the filmmakers there and said, no, but you do beautiful movies and films and documentaries. People love what you are doing. But guys, man, your quality is a problem. We can help you. Let's partner. We'll help you on the quality, and then you'll continue. Now, this mass production of the story of Nigeria is something we need to look into, because that advice was not taken. The people who were supposed to be advised told them, no, brothers, our people love the thing. What can you offer besides what we are saying? We are fine. So I'm saying that there are things which need to be done by us and everybody else to ensure that we indeed grow, not only financially, as somebody has said. I think Eric Mieni and the lady who came here from IDT or DTI, the Department of Trade and Industry, raised the matter. Owning and telling the South African story should take precedence if the industry has to craft its own identity and attain its rightful place in the world of film. The underrepresentation of women in the sector was not unique, taking into cognizance this historical injustice we spoke about. Since the advent of democracy and the adoption of various United Nations declarations and conventions, South Africa has made a lot of strides in the development of women through a number of policy interventions, legislations, and programs. The cultural and creative industries, and in particular, the audiovisual sector, has long been recognized as a catalyst for economic growth in South Africa, with the potential to contribute immensely to the South African economy and creating employment. Many studies have shown the sector's tremendous contribution to the gross domestic product, revenue collection, and its multiplier effect in terms of creating employment. The summit must answer the rapid developing need to reorient towards becoming a knowledge economy, a process already acknowledged in the National Development Plan 2030. This summit cannot avoid or escape the imminent disruptions which Professor Marwala so eloquently spoke of earlier on, and opportunities presented by technological and digital developments. Therefore, adapting and embracing innovation for the transformation of the sector is a necessity if the industry is to realize growth and capture opportunities presented by the fourth industrial revolution, digitalization, and continuing convergence. In a report released by the South African Cultural Observatory in 2018, and this report follows many other reports about the industry. And these reports and researches have pointed to us that perhaps it's time to have this information, but focus on programs and actual implementation. that if 12 months or so, when you come back, you should be able to say yourselves, this is what we said should happen, and it has happened or has not. And this report, the establishment of the film sector as a catalyst for economic growth in South Africa towards a Sallywood framework. In fact, here, it was just a guide to work, because the branding of the industry itself belongs to yourselves as the practitioners in the industry. The report says the following, amongst others: worldwide, the potential of the cultural and creative industries to contribute to economic growth and job creation is increasingly being recognized. An important part of the sector is the film and television industry, which also plays important roles in fostering national social cohesion. A few developing economies have been successful in growing their film and television sectors, most notably in Nigeria, the Nollywood, and India, the Bollywood, close quote. Significant strides have been made since 1994. There's been a number of policy strategies and interventions introduced by the government and implementing agencies to support the South African film industry. The summit acknowledges this reality and seeks to respond to rapid developments following policy, legal, market, and technological shifts experienced globally. So, if what Bogaba was talking about, the 72 million rands misstole, is little, how much is enough?
There is not a value, but with your wisdom and your passion for the industry, you will see what's in the big pie, because the government has got pressing issues to deal with. And so we are putting our faith in you to just do your best for us.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, thanks. Thanks for that. With the all global economic developments, which we know, but thanks for what you are saying. I'll keep at the back of my mind $500 million you are talking about. But what she said, no, don't clap, because we are committing me with that. But what she's saying is that let's continue to press and press for more. As we said, if you say 500 million, maybe we've reached that or we're above that. What we as colleagues in government would be doing going forward is how to rationalize what is there in government, this one government. With the story I told you of 100 million rands from NFVF, or Arts and Culture, with 300 million rands from trade and industry, with 300 million rands from IDC. Perhaps what should follow here, 50 million rands from NEF. What should follow here is to look at many other things, including leakages. What I've noticed with government is that sometimes there will be investments in what we do as different sectors. But some of those investments get undermined by the leakages. I'm putting it mildly. You know, leakages is where money disappears. Where a service was supposed to be rendered to a people. And that point permeates in some of our endeavors as government, which is nothing else but corruption. I have a no thanks. But it's really, it doesn't matter, it doesn't make sense to put all the efforts in what needs to be done and without putting proper mechanisms to ensure that there's proper accountability. This annual engagement is going to help. One of the reasons, well, it's towards the end. We are at the end of this term. And one of the reasons which took us this far, we first met in 2015. There was a particular issue about the distribution and the sites. I remember the movie by Omotoso Akin. And we came together. But we felt that it would be important to have a clear product to work on, which should produce a program, and that program has to be assessed as we go. And not that we meet once in 10 years or once in 5 years, but be able to meet and continuously assess what we do. On this very continent, one of the anchor of our story should be the assertion and affirmation that we are Africans. Sometimes South Africans forget that. Yes. The mindset has to be worked by nobody else but the creatives. Somebody visits Nigeria or Gabon, and you ask, but where were you last week? Said, no, I went to Africa. The teams here, our soccer teams go and play. They go to the DRC and elsewhere. And I will tell you, those who are officials there, hey, it's difficult to play in Africa, man. The facilities, but where are we? And who are we as South Africa? So we should factor that in. So at the continental level, we are still working on the co-production treaties. We should also celebrate as South Africa the 50 years of FESPACO that is going to be taking place in Burkina Faso this year, the land of Thomas Sankara, this month actually. And one of our own filmmaker, film producer, is going to be one of those who are opening through his film, who are opening FESPACO at 50. So it's an achievement. It's something we must be able to talk about. I want to thank, as I conclude, the reference group that was made up of the industry organizations for the job well done in their preparation for the summit. And I'm looking forward to the outcomes, practical outcomes from all of us, which should point the way forward. And until and unless we understand how powerful cultural and creative industry is, we are not going to prosper as a country. Go to any land today, whether developing countries or developed nations. If you see pilgrimages going to those countries, it's about this space. It's about the space we are in. It's about cultural and creative industries. Just a few months ago, we were in China. You can see the Times Square, how full it is. There is no place. These are some of the things. As the late president of the ANC captured this very well, and I liked it. Because when he said that after 20 years being in exile, sent to mobilize the world against apartheid, has been preaching through length and breadth of the globe. And he said his 20 years could not be equal to a performance by a group called Amandla Ensemble of Prajonas Gwangwa and others in 2 hours. That's how powerful this space is. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister, thank you very much for that thought-provoking, insightful address, which I believe will shape and also guide the interactions that are going to take place during the commissions. It is important, as you have said, that our film and industry in particular should be able to begin to define the identity of South Africans and tell true, authentic South African stories through audiovisual. Because if we're able to do that, maybe our ambition as we live here in that 5-year plan must be our ability to say, how can Hollywood beat us when we've got so much diversity? How can Bollywood beat us when they don't have the diversity we have? How can Nollywood beat us when we are also having so much experience, so much knowledge, and so much resources that are so in-depth in our country? And therefore, I think, ladies and gentlemen, with that message, the question is, to what end will these recommendations be made? What will be the solid product that we are going to be able to say, here we have it, so that our children and our children's children, when they grow, they will be able to say, I don't have to go to Hollywood. I don't have to leave Durban or Limpopo to come to Joburg. But that the potential that I have, I can express within my own locality and make South Africa proud. Because South Africa has got talent, South Africa has got amazing potential. And Minister, you've made it clear, we have not yet explored this to a level where we can be able to have a revolution of skills and a revolution of the economy. And to do that, this sector is well poised to achieve it. The question is, during our commissions, do we have a unity of purpose and a unity of action about what should be the state and the future of the South African film industry? So if we go to these commissions and we engage, taking into account the messages from the minister and all the speakers who have spoken, our deputy minister who laid the foundation in her own comments during the welcoming remarks, if we put all these things together, what are we going to produce as a unity of purpose, united in our vision to take this industry to the greatest heights possible? But we can't be beaten by all these other woods and woods. So if we can have our own Sollywood or Mzansi wood, isn't that possible with this magnificent talent that is here, with the message and the leadership that has been provided by our minister and the deputy minister? We have our MEC Odumo here, but look, we don't have a dance session, so I can't ask her to come and dance next to me for now. But MEC Mazibuko, we really appreciate your presence again here. She knows that I can dance better than her, but we will not compete at this stage. But you can capture us on the movies. It would be great. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we just have a bit of a tweak to accommodate that time is not on our side. The message was that we cannot and should not play with time. One of my colleagues, when I was in Ivory Coast, which is Cote d'Ivoire now, once said to me, when there was a long wait to be addressed by the minister there, and he said, when it was over an hour waiting, he said, you know what's the difference, my friend, between us and the Europeans? It was quite a painful thing, but he said, one of the things is that we have, as Africans, watches, but the Europeans have time. And I then thought about what does this mean? And naturally we continue to say there is African time. It can't be right. Time is of essence and would like to use it to the maximum possible. So what we're going to do, we are not going to break for tea. If those who want to have some tea or whatever, you've got water in front of you, we will combine tea and lunch, so it will be tea lunch. So when we do that, in the meantime, we will ask the panelists to come forth, and we will release Minister, the Deputy Minister, and possibly Mr. Anand Singh, just for them and the MEC, for them to have the interviews. There is an interview room by media, which we have prepared, so that when we then go for lunch, we will then go once and for all, and we break to commissions and not come back to sit here for another session. So I think that will be much in order. I know that they say that elderly people have a limited attention span as they grow, but I believe that the attention span here is quite very, very strong. So allow us to move to the session of a panel discussion Q&A, which will then be moderated by our panelist, Professor Silva Vollenhoven, who will come and take over the facilitation of that, as I request that Minister and Deputy Minister, can we give them a round of applause as they take leave for them. Professor Sylvia, will you please come forth, and I call upon the following. Dr. Loazimanzi from SASFET, will you please come forth? Ms. Azania Mwendane, IBFC. Ms. Faith Isiaka, Mr. Faith Isiakpere, CBFA. Mr. Balufu Bakuba Kanyenda. You know, I used to have a Nyerenda, who was a very great striker for Kaiser Chiefs. And when he left, Chiefs can't score goals up to now. It's a problem. We are welcomed Mr. Kanyenda for us. And then we have also a director from DRC Congo, and then Ms. Mpo Ntlasheng, as well as Ms. Ubakeng Malupe. Can they all please come forth as we start with the Q&A? And I request that Ms. Professor Sylvia Vollenhoven please come forth. Oh. Professor, over to you. Please, if you do go out, come back as soon as possible. We would like to have your inputs during this Q&A.
Shop, have a seat anywhere, ma'am? I can come later. I can come. I'm sitting there. I was sitting there.